Dice Never Lie Gaming Network. Thank you very much for tuning in today. I am Dungeon Master Marathustra. Today we are rejoining the Twin Star Marauders as Malchin and Jinx enter back into the city in their search for Phon Quartermain and some of the questions of what is plaguing her. Who are these mysterious individuals who seem to be tracking them through the city? And some of the other mysteries that still lie open inside of this large sandbox city that is Ptolus, City by the Spire. But you just kind of have like this up in the air sort of experience with Hobbs. And basically then that next day, Mitharnius, who is rather well joined and come into the guild at this point. She's been with you guys for like 2 or so weeks at this point since Delphinius's death, since you guys kind of discovered that. She's basically going to set herself off in a constant vigil of tracking and following Hobbs. So at this point, as far as I'm concerned, when you guys are ready to figure out what is going on with Hobbs and kind of like move back towards him, Mitharnis is your contact on that. Effectively, she'll be in and out of the guild house, but most of her time is going to be spent kind of on the streets trying to keep an eye on Hobbs and see what she can find from afar.
Sick. She is a very cool NPC, and that's an awesome way for us to be able to get back to that and not have to start completely over.
As long as she doesn't get killed. So at present, with you all kind of having this time in between then and now, is there anything going about the city that you two in particular were looking to accomplish before we pick up today? Are you guys essentially going about sort of normal actions, like spending most of your time uh, like, are you working your jobs where you're just kind of making a little bit of normal money? Are you trying to do anything special in this downtime? What are you guys thinking about using this week of downtime for?
All right, so I basically just went on a pretty big bender, like working, and then almost died. So I would probably be on the like lackluster side. Maybe do some like storytelling and like hustling and gambling to get through for the week. Like
Gotcha.
showing everybody like the vampire teeth like on my neck and shit, like doing like a little image of like the battle and everything, just kind of putting on like a little show for everybody.
Gotcha. So I think it's perfectly fine to say if you're just going to be kind of trying to earn like a little bit of an honest living, let me get a performance and a D100 from you.
19 on performance and 93 on the D100.
And what does Malchin think he is doing? What do you think you're expecting to do with Malchin this week?
Well, I'm thinking he's gonna be off selling off some of the gems he's found on the adventures before. Uh, Thinking he's gonna need to gear up a little bit more than he has so far. And I think I've written down like gems worth around 50 gold each. I think I found those on Parnat's Yule, the boat. 100% sure because I haven't written down where I found them.
Gotcha. So, like inside of Delver's Square, should just have the the DM version. I think I have the full one inside of the actual Discord. I'm not sure why I have the edited. Here. But inside of Delver's Square, I think the general sales place that would actually probably be inside of the Wizard place. Um,
Like Millwright's Oddities or
no, Mirai's Oddities, I
Danbury.
feel like is the normal one.
Oh,
Yeah, Danbury's, I feel like is the Wizard's place. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Mireille Soddides, she's the one who will buy and sell magic items. Um, Danbury's is the wizard shop. So I feel like Danbury's is probably a solid place to go and sell your gems. In the long run, are you just looking to sling them and get rid of them? Are you looking to try to like spend some time to get your best options? What are you thinking here on how fast do you want to make the sale?
I'm thinking like probably just try to get rid of them as soon as possible. Like just get money fast. So lose a bit of gold on that, but
Gotcha. So yeah, going into Danbury's, you basically have like kind of a like stuffy, kind of like smoky, like incense filled, like it's got like a sage kind of smell, can smell like some kind of like lavender in the air. A lot of different herbs kind of hang around the shop. And kind of going around overall, it's pretty like filled with stuff. There's things on top of other things, and you're kind of like bumping into things as you go through. There's just stuff everywhere inside of Danbury's, but it's quite kind of like eclectic little shop. And you just see a kind of like male human who's kind of like buried behind all of this stuff, kind of like pokes his head out a little bit, and he kind of like looks over to you, and he's, "Oh, welcome. How can I help you?" And he reaches out his left hand and he says, "Tabor Danbury at your service. What can I do you for?"
Malshan here, and I'll like, pull out like a little bag and like show him the 4 gems. Try to sell these ones off, get a bit of gold.
Gotcha. So what kind of gems are they?
I think I don't. That's the thing. I haven't written it down. It's just like gems worth around 50 gold. That's all I've written for some reason.
Oh, okay. You didn't even write down what they were. Um, Let me see. And you think they were from Parnaith?
Yeah, because I think that's the only one where I gotten gems that were worth like more than 4 gold.
Gotcha. Yeah, I really didn't write them down. Unless it was from the next session. Let's see. I wrote down the same thing. 4x50 GP gemstone. So yeah, I probably was just unclear about it because they weren't diamonds, basically. Um, yeah, chest in the underground. So I feel like you guys might have picked that up afterwards as well. Like it looks like it was after you talked to Brother Ambersov about the singing bowl. So yeah, he'll kind of like look over these gems, and kind of like place them around. Well, most of these I could probably sell for about 50 lions apiece. How much are you looking for?
As much as I can get for as fast as I can get them. Kinda in need of the lions right now, so
I could give you 75 lions for them.
yeah, I'll take it. That's sure, I'll take it.
Excellent. And he'll start counting out some pieces, and he'll kind of like yell over to there's a bartender kind of like off on the like side area where there's just like a little like seating area. You see a couple of hooded figures kind of like sat down like at one table, and there's like two other tables there, and he just says, Orin, prepare this fellow a drink. And Danbury will look back to you and he's like, well, what would you like to drink? Algin?
Oh, if you have an ale, I'll take that.
Oren, prepare this fellow an ale. I'll be counting some coins for him. It's on us. And he'll basically, as he's counting out the lions for you, this like old dwarf kind of like taps one of the kegs, pours out a glass of ale, and will basically like walk over to one of the tables, kind of looking to you as he like goes to set it down. Like essentially, you've got the choice of two tables, and he's like, "Is this table good?" But he's just going to walk away with the beer sitting there. Danbury takes another few minutes to count out the coins, and he'll come back to you and pass off the coins. But otherwise, you're kind of like welcome to like relax for that time, and kind of like um, hang out in Danbury's while you like finish the ale. But it's probably like 2 or 3 minutes before he actually finishes counting. Alrighty, so with Jinx, as you are kind of spending your time going around the city, telling some of these tales. Day after day, you kind of like notice like the crowds of these different like kind of like backwater taverns are getting like a little bit bigger. And after like the fourth day, you actually have somebody come up to you and they kind of like introduce themselves as kind of like a bit of a interested party in having you tell your tales for them, and they'll offer you 20 gold pieces for the next 2 nights, like basically into the weekend, to come to the ghostly minstrel.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So basically, like, when you like, you're just like in kind of like some backwater tavern, kind of telling these stories, and you have this person introduce themselves. They offer you that 20 gold, and you basically are told like, just come to Delver Square, say at the 5 strikes of the clock, 5 p.m. on Friday night, and I'll have you do Friday and Saturday nights. You can tell your stories probably for 2 or so hours. And make what you make, as anybody might tip you. And then, as well as that, we'll pay you the 20 gold agreed. If you require any information, please don't hesitate to ask for Vard. But otherwise, you should be well taken care of by Tellith if there's anything you require.
Much appreciated, Levon. Definitely looking forward to it as I do like to tell a tall tale, and I know that people find it quite entertaining. So yeah, I'll put on a little
Uh,
show. Oh, go ahead. My bad.
so I want you to roll another. I think do another D100 for me.
72.
So on the second night that you are at the ghostly minstrel, you see a figure who basically was there for your first showing at the minstrel, and they never drank. They never really like took food or really kind of like let anybody kind of interrupt them. They just kind of like sit at a table and just kind of like silently watch your show, your storytelling, and your kind of performance, and they just kind of relax there. On the second night, you kind of recognize that this person is there again, and let me get a intelligence check here.
No modifiers, so it's 19 total.
Gotcha. And you kind of recall, like, I'm pretty sure this person spent like the last 2 nights at the dive bars that you were in. So they've watched the last 4 shows that you've done, all just kind of silently hooded, keeping to themselves, not really having any interaction with anybody. When you go off stage, if you like go around the tavern, if you go around the ghostly minstrel, and you kind of like schmooze and like spend some time, having people buying you drinks, having people pass you coin for the story, you will notice each and every time, like once you're off stage, this person's gone, and they've been there for the last 4 nights. But effectively, that's how we'll kind of like end your Saturday. Is you're kind of like finishing off in the Ghostly Minstrel. Um, First row was a 93, so let's say roll.
Oh, you said roll and then it cut out right after.
My bad. Roll 4d6.
19 total.
Gotcha. So total take, just you can grab 39 gold, from those two shows at the Ghostly Minstrel. Um, we'll call it your total take from like all four show or like your shows this week. But just write down 39 gold basically is what you kind of brought in, putting on these shows this week. And other than that, that will then take us to this kind of week here. And we can kind of like pick up with effectively Sunday after having done that last show with the Ghostly Minstrel. So we can pick up essentially with everybody at the actual Goblin House. And basically, yeah, well, can't remember his name. Can't remember. Can't believe I forgot. It's been so long since I used that NPC, the leader of the Twin Star Marauders, the like patron.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So we'll pick up on Sunday with Kalimtas kind of like like welcoming you to the Goblin House and um kind of like as you guys like show back up that morning, or maybe like a little early in the afternoon kind of thing. And he'll just kind of like it's pleasure to see you, Malchin. James. Everything has been fine for you two. No trouble this week. No one searching after you.
Funny you should mention that. Are you privy to any information as to someone that might have been tailing me? I mean, don't get me wrong, I know I'm quite entertaining, but I don't often see the same face over and over again. Oh, and how much was it to join the guild? Wasn't it like 10 gold or something?
What is it? Delver's Guild. When you go there, I think 20 gold is the full membership. I think 10 is the minimum.
Okay, so as I like say that to him, I'm gonna pull out the 20 gold and I'm gonna
That's
just.
not the same as this.
Oh, I'm sorry, I mixed up. Who are we at right now?
This is Kalimtas for the Twin Star Marauders. This is like the guy who you guys basically like worked with in the Warrens, and you now have like a little bit of kind of like your safe house in the Goblin House.
Oh, my bad. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I completely mixed it up.
Yeah, 20 gold pieces for the full guildsman. It is 10 gold pieces if you join as an associate. But associate still has fees and whatnot. If you've got the gold and that's your plan, but that's with Shad Libovic or with Erica Sue, underneath Delver Square.
Okay, so still same question, but not I'm not gonna like go with the gold. I'm just gonna like try to be like uh inquisitive or intuitive about what he's saying.
Well, it would appear that we have people searching after ourselves. There have been questions about the young lady that some of you assisted, Phon, as well as Eugene and Vabuza have been searched after by name, but they are also aware of the Twin Star Marauders themselves. And it seems from those of our guild who are out and about the city that the questions are indeed getting closer and they're learning more and more. But if you notice yourself being followed, it perhaps is the same concern.
Yeah, I suppose that's possible. I honestly hadn't really considered that as an option. I thought maybe it had something to do with what we've been into recently. Now, would I have noticed, did I ever get a good look at them to see, did they like appear to be like pale skinned and look like into like dark magic or death stuff?
Make a perception check at disadvantage.
It's a 7.
Definitely one of those situations where, like, every time you try to throw in a flourish where you kind of wave your hands and go into a deep bow and almost try to look down and look below their hood, all kinds of these different things that you would do over the last day or two, as you start to clue into this person is following you. You never once got a good look at their face. It was almost as if every single time you tried to do something, they did something that counteracted it, kind of thing.
Right. I know the like feeling or like scene from a movie type thing. Like every time at the worst time, like the waitress like walks in front or like somebody like steps in front. Yeah. So I would definitely ask Malchin. Malchin's with me right now, right? We're together.
Yep.
Malchin, I don't know anything about this Phon woman. Is this familiar to you?
I think this goes back to this was Davros Dalton's father, Seraph Babuzin.
Okay, so I guess maybe Seraph would have told me something about this, or maybe I don't know.
Theoretically, you guys have the rest of the guild there. I think part of what we're kind of going for here is anytime we're in session, theoretically the guild gathers at the Goblin House kind of thing. So you kind of have everybody there who's not out on a mission of sorts. But again, it just kind of falls back to this is somebody that the guild saved, and the important thing is for you guys to recognize is you essentially have an organization who is tracking you all down based on something about her because her name is being included in the questioning they are taking about the city.
And she was basically just like a single woman that we like kind of. It was like that textile related situation, and we like saved her from getting mugged or something.
Yep, she was basically a single pregnant woman being attacked in the streets. Oh wait, damn it. I don't think you guys knew that she was pregnant. I that was the same thing that I feel like I said in initial thought and Eugene kind of latched on to. But yeah, I don't think I actually ever you guys would have actually ever noticed that. Um
So when he asks about her, then like fully knowing that we know all this stuff, I'll know that Seraph actually insisted on walking her home after that went down, so he would know where she lives. So I would then bring that up, and I mean I could get with Seraph, and he could tell me exactly where it is. We could swing by and see. I mean, if they're asking about her, it's one thing if we're in danger, but hate for her. Matter of fact, maybe there's more to this. We should pop by there.
Seraph, I believe, did not hold back on also sharing. She works at a upper scale clothier, Sashes, in the Guildsman or in the Midtown area. So,
Yeah, he did mention some textiles and fabrics and whatnot, so that does make sense. That's more up his alley as well with those scarfs and whatever that thing is he's got wrapped around his head.
If I recall from Eugene and Vabuza's searches, they did not actually find anything when they tracked down. And he kind of like flips through a little book. Uh, there was a house on Nar Street that burnt. Don't have a particular name. I believe that they tracked down some of those who had been asking about her at that time, and they found the burnt down house. And then at some point, they opened up a. They had one of our. Um, oh man, I need a list of the NPCs that I created. They had one of the rogues of the guild open up a lockbox, and inside there were a few different vials and potions. Um, he'll pull out one of them, and it's just a small vial. We're never able to fully identify what this substance is. And he kind of like shakes the vial, and you can see like it's an almost kind of like powdery, almost kind of like flaky, kind of black substance. Maybe holding it up to the light, there might be like a little bit of kind of like a greenish kind of tinge to it. Um, Let me get a perception check from each of you. And do either of you think there's any reason you would have an affinity with street drugs?
Oh yeah, I'm from the streets and I occasionally still wake up on them, so definitely I would.
I mean, 16 is pretty good, but if you think you've got a reason to have an affinity to street drugs, you can roll another one with advantage, basically. I am from the streets and occasionally wake up on the streets still to this day.
So yeah, the 16's better.
So, kind of like looking over it, Malchin might kind of recognize pretty quickly that this is kind of like the like color and like material of like dried out effectively seaweed. You can basically recognize this is something sailors will actually keep, simply because like ships almost kind of collect it naturally, and in the long run, it's a really solid way to stave off scurvy when you're on long voyages because it does indeed have vitamin C. Jinx fully recognizes that this may have once been seaweed, but this is something completely different. This is shivel, and this is a drug that is quite horrendously dangerous to try, let alone to risk getting addicted to. Jinx, with your affinity to this, roll a d8 for me.
A two.
You have at least like two really close like friends growing up kind of thing that you can basically tell the story of. They tried shivel, within weeks they were dead. And that's kind of what this stuff does. You don't get addicted to this stuff and live for long. You get addicted to it and die, or you basically do it and suffer because you don't do it anymore. There's not really an in between. If you survive doing this stuff, It is essentially you survive through pain and agony. There's not really a middle ground for this, but not doing it after you try it is the only way to really survive, and it is horrific. What it does to you, you essentially withdraw because it is a pretty much magical, permanent addiction from one dose.
So yeah, I would like obviously share that and like tell a little story about losing close friends to it, and basically just share all that. And then I would also throw in too, if you ever find a lead or need somebody to have a look around, I'd be glad to volunteer my services. Whoever's behind this needs to be stopped.
Well, you could check on Phon, could see how things are at Sachez, and check on Eugene and Vabuza said there was little to nothing to find on Nar Street. That has been some months ago. I would say there is nowhere for us to go with this. But I do believe if you were to do those things, if you were to follow Fan for long enough, it seems like as they get closer to us, it will not be long before they find her. And perhaps making yourselves the prey is a sufficient enough way to find a lead forward.
What you think, Malchin?
Yeah, I think this is something we should get in on. I'd say this, but
Yeah, she's in danger. They found me already. Now, granted, I'm famous, obviously, but that being said, we should probably get on this as soon as possible.
yeah, this seems like it could be pretty serious from what we heard so far. Don't really think we should leave someone out to dry like that. Well, out to dry is maybe the wrong word, but like we should try to help. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I agree. That should be our top priority, then. So at some point in time, I'm gonna take that 20 gold off and pay that membership. And then also, I got 3 bags of caltrops. So that's like 3 silver as well.
Alrighty. Well, here's the thing. Like, I still think there's a certain like fact of the matter. Like, you guys can go to the Delvers Guild and join. I don't want to just like hand wave that by, because it's a potential for you guys to ask questions about things that you're searching after. So consider that aspect of things that you don't necessarily just have to hand wave it. Um, you're trying to sell caltrops, or you're trying to buy caltrops.
No, I want to buy 3 sets of them.
Gotcha. So yeah, like it's at this point, it's kind of like a question for me, like, do you guys want to go into Midtown? Are you looking to immediately like go to Sachez, which is like 196, right below where it says Long Bottom there? Are you trying to go to Sachez and see if you can find Fawn? Nar Street, where the house burnt down, is on essentially the same street that Sachez is on. Sachez is like between Yeoman and Nar Street. Um, Bon lived on Crispin Street, and then the warehouse that they staked out and apparently had nothing to do with it was on Able and Ration. So it's just kind of my question of like, what are you actually thinking about doing? What is your next priority? Is your priority going to the Delvers Guild and trying to get some information about something? Because that's a good time to sign up and pay your 20 gold. Um, you know, if you're worried about losing the gold, it might be worth it to say, I'm going to give this to Malchin and have Malchin hold on to my 20 gold, being that at present he is essentially the only person who's not a gambling addict.
Okay, yeah. So we just basically said that our top priority is Phon. So that will be our priority. I'm going to roll right now to see if I'm smart enough or have enough control to give it to Malchin, because like every time there's like an opportunity, I'm going to potentially gamble and lose it. So 1. So I do not have the self control to give it to Malchin.
Gotcha. So when you guys want to go after Fawn, you know that she is often at St. Gustav's, which is the temple to Lothian, just outside of like across the street from the Delvers Guild or from the Delvers Square. It is 195 on this map. Delvers Square is 187. So she is often at St. Gustav's. She works at Sachez, which is 196. And then she lives on Crispin Street. So she has effectively her life kind of exists between 195. Um, I don't really have like a good way to say Crispin Street, but Crispin Street and Sachez. So, what are you guys thinking? What is your first step on saying Fawn is your main focus?
I think depending what time of day it is, if it's daytime, what you think, Malcolm would just go to a job, right? That's where she ought to be.
Yeah, I think that's a good first start.
And I think you would definitely notice like the whole time that like I'm like uncomfortably checking like my coin purse like all the time just to make sure it's still there. Like to the point where it would be like, what the hell is he doing?
If I say that, I am gonna like question you. Is something wrong? You keep looking at your coin purse.
Nothing's wrong necessarily. I don't know. I've got this itch and I don't know if I'm afraid I'm gonna lose it or if I'm afraid I'm gonna lose it. But I never had this much wealth before.
If you would, can each of you roll me a d8?
It's 5 for Jinx.
Yeah, and a 4 for Malshin. Yeah, and I think Malshin will, like, from what you said before, is I feel you. I wasn't ever like dirt poor before, but uh, Pat is like on point coin person. But this is more my goal that I'm usually comfortable walking around with.
Exactly. And given our blessing to always find trouble, uh, I'm just, I don't know. There's some responsible things I could do with it too. And I feel like that's probably what I should do. But maybe if I just hit the tables for a little bit, I could double it up and then think about all the good I could do with the donation. And I kind of owe them for saving us. I don't know. I'm probably overthinking it. I'm sure we'll be fine.
So while you guys are walking across the King's River and over the bridge, I think this is actually the same bridge near the Temple of the Rat God into Midtown on Lower God Row. As you're walking over this bridge, there's plenty of traffic around you of like normal people going about their business. But you notice this city guard who is like clearly like limping with blood kind of like running down his left leg from underneath his cuirass, underneath his like steel armor, and it's running down his left leg that he's limping on. And you can just see as he's kind of like limping across this bridge in the other direction. Just catches your eye for a moment, but he's just kind of moving about, going up north, crossing your path. Uh, any thoughts, or do you guys just kind of continue on?
That can't be good, Malchin. I got healing. I wouldn't feel right if I didn't help him.
Yeah, I understand. Could happen as well. Doesn't seem like the usual thing to have blood running around.
This would be the type of thing where we wouldn't see this like ever, pretty much, right?
I mean, people get injured pretty regularly, but it's abnormal to certainly see a guard like bleeding and walking.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. So yeah, it must be something serious going on if somebody's like attacking a guard, I feel like. So as somebody who's from the city, naturally I'm gonna go to help him.
So as you move up to him and kind of approach him, as soon as your movement kind of changes, you see like a reaction in this person. This is like say like mid 30s, kind of like late 30s guard, and his like helmet covers most of his face, but you see like a look of fear is the first thing that crosses his mind as he like takes like a defensive stance, almost like lowering his body, putting one arm up almost to shield himself as his other hand like goes towards his sword hilt. He doesn't like draw the weapon immediately, but this is just like as you kind of like change your direction of walk to approach him. And you'll just hear halt. What's your business?
Oh, we're from here, brother. Nothing, no threatening or anything. I've got friends that are city guards, and I see you're injured. If you'd allow me, I could offer you aid.
Let me get you to roll a persuasion.
Oh no, it's a three. Plus six, so nine total.
Wait, did you roll a d8?
Yeah, you did roll a d8. Solid.
I think it
Uh,
got the point across. So yeah, it's a natural one now.
so that is one of those things. Normally, you'd gain inspiration here, but you already have it. You guys don't have anybody to give it to. It's just going to kind of get lost. Um, but he just kind of like looks to you, and your offer is appreciated and unnecessary. Go on your way, and I'll be on mine. And he kind of like takes like two steps backwards. And again, this is entirely abnormal. Don't need any sort of insight roll to recognize like whatever this guard is doing, something about it is weird.
I'm gonna kind of like look over at Malchin and like acknowledge there's something going on here. Look, I'm not gonna tell you what to do. You're obviously a man, an officer in uniform, but I highly recommend that you allow me to help you. And I'm gonna do like an intimidation to him.
Let me see the intimidation.
7 plus 5, so 12 total.
It's dangerous to threaten a guard of the city. Continue on your way. And I think at that point he'll kind of like look over your things between the two of you. Um, like, does Jinx carry a weapon? It's the boomerang, right? That's probably pretty easy to hide. But Malchin has like bow and short sword, right?
Yeah, he'll have like a long bow, a short sword, and a scimitar.
Yeah, I feel like on some level he's just gonna kind of be on your way, Delvers. This is not your business. Don't make it mine. And he's gonna take two more steps backward.
Um, Man, Malchin, what do you want to do here? I'm gonna look up to you.
Yeah, I think Marsh will like body on the bed here. Like, uh, I apologize for my friend's like lack of bedside manners here, but we are only trying to help, and it is kind of worrying to see a guard hurt out in the streets. Did something happen? Like, were you attacked? It's not entirely usual to see just out and about. And if there's anything we can help with, we certainly like to give whatever aid we can.
Your aid, no matter why you care to interrupt my business, is unwanted. I seek the healing of my priest, of a Lothian who follow no gods. I don't need what you have to offer. On your way. And he's just gonna draw like the hilt of his sword, just like 2 inches. It's just enough that like basically the blade's free from like the grasp um of the I want to say hilt, but the sheath, but it's still essentially sheathed. But it's just the start of drawing his blade, and he takes 2 more steps back.
I think, can I like take a look? The armor he's wearing and cares like everything that, does it seem on anything like unusual about it? Like, does it seem to fit properly? Anything like that? I was getting kind of suspicious.
Make a perception check.
That is a 19. Oh wait, that's actually a 21. Or am I completely?
So I think that sounds right. I think you've got a +2 wisdom. So you rolled a 19. I think it should be a 21.
Yeah, I get confused sometimes with the proficiency dice, but yeah, that's a 21.
So as you're kind of looking over this figure, there's nothing about like the size of his armor seems off. It's not like lacking in like the way it looks. You just start to notice like where he's bleeding from. It's not like coming out from under the armor. Like the blood is flowing from its side, but it's like right where the armor should be covering up the flow of blood for say like another inch before it would be visible. It's almost as if like the armor of its cuirass is bleeding from its side rather than from bleeding and coming out below the cuirass. I don't know if I can say that clear without basically giving away exactly what it is. Maybe a 21 is sufficient to say you're familiar enough with magic to start to recognize this is probably not a guard. This is somebody who looks like a guard.
Yeah, he's like a bit away from us, right? So I'm just gonna.
He really only like
Just,
kind of two-stepped a few times. You guys are probably at most 15 or 20 feet away from each other.
So do you share that with me, Malchin, that you don't think he's a guard or there might be some magic about?
yeah, I think I'll do that, even if I think he'll hit me. I was like, I don't think that's a guard, Jinx.
Make a sleight of hand for me, Malchin.
Oh, good. I actually proficient in that too. Cool. doesn't really help. Yeah, that's a total of 8.
Awfully hilarious because I also rolled really bad, but better than an 8. When you kind of like turn your head, almost like keeping an eye on it still, to figure out what this guard is doing, and try to like say this to Jinx to kind of like point out like this blood that's like coming from metal or what looks like metal. This recognition that this thing is something that is effectively taking on the look of a guard. And you're kind of like bringing this up. You're going to see is just like the flow of traffic, people crossing this bridge is still happening. And in an instant, this guard is just going to like reach out and grasp like a 7, 8 year old child and just like tug them from the back, like the nape of their neck, and just fling this kid over into the water, like 20 feet below the bridge. And they're going to start to run to the north. And I want you guys to roll initiative.
Yeah, that's an 8 total for Marshall.
16 for Jinx.
All right, Jinx, you got the best chance at basically like catching this kid like before they go over. Kind of the situation's gonna kind of sit in that moment of this guard is like throwing the kid, like grabbing the kid and throwing the kid right in front of you. So what would you like to do as they're basically like hucking this kid over the edge?
Like, okay, here's what I'm thinking. Can I use suggestion to try to like suggest an alternative course of action?
I would lean towards no on that one because I don't think you really recognize what's happening. You're acting faster than this person, is why I'm kind of giving you a chance to potentially stop it. But I don't think it's necessarily faster that you could weave your magic to stop it, if that kind of makes sense. Um, is there a course where I think you could potentially do something? Maybe. But I'm not sure I think magic is necessarily that response. I don't know if
Okay,
that
I
makes
got you.
sense. I
I'm
like
gonna.
the idea of this person starting the combat right here because he heard Malchin whispering. And normally I would say like I would start on their initiative order because of that, but I don't want you to lose a turn is kind of why I'm having you start it. So that's kind of where I'm going with that idea. Like there might be an option, there might even be a magical option of what you're doing. I just don't necessarily think suggestion, because I do feel like that takes a little bit more time to like weave the magic
Yeah, it's
than
like
necessarily.
sentence. I have hold person, but alternatively, if we're pretty close, if I could get there, I'll just run up and try to grapple like the child slash guy. I guess I'll try to grab the child to get it away from him.
Gotcha. So it like basically try to respond to the actual threat to the kid, trying to get up there and like get hands on the kid. So yeah, just do a dexterity check for me. I'm gonna say that is solid. So
16
basically
plus 2, yeah.
you run up like, say like 20 or so feet. Um, you're now like triangular to this person because they threw the kid towards the edge of the bridge and they're basically like center bridge. So you've kind of like run up and you're not necessarily say you're 10 feet from the guard, but you basically ran 20 feet like hypotenuse to catch the kid, and you just kind of catch the kid over. You can essentially action to pick the kid up, or you can, the kid's still potentially at risk right now, and you could do something that actually uses your action. But right now, that's just movement and like free action to catch the kid. So
Okay.
get them totally into safety is like basically that idea of like grapple, pick them up over the edge, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's the route I'm going for. I'm gonna use my action. I'm gonna use up everything else to get the kid to safety and like make sure that I'm in between any further threat.
Gotcha. So you can pick the kid back up over the edge. and you could close distance on this guard, like with your actual movement, or you can basically just kind of pick the kid up over the edge and basically like stand between like the kid and the guard at this point. But like there's immediate screaming around you guys as this happens. Is there any other thought? Do you want to close the distance, or are you kind of holding this distance?
I'll hold the distance right there, and then I'll just say to him, "What the hell is wrong with you, you prick? Impersonating a god is a felony."
Um, so as he kind of like looks to you as you like throw like as you like grasp this kid and like catch them, bring them back over the edge. You see as he's like double taking everything, like looking like Malchin looks back towards Jinx, Malchin back towards Jinx. He's going to flee. Um, Probably about towards the edge of the bridge, getting into like kind of the temple district side. And you're going to see as when he gets to like the opposite side of the bridge, he's going to like dive towards some people who are like at that area, kind of like sheltered next to and beneath like one of the like kind of like pillars at the edge of the bridge, and just kind of like slams into these people. Um, Damn it, I fucking rolled a 3. As he tries to like hide in all of this mass of people, you guys are going to see as like the armor of the guard kind of like disappears, and there's like just kind of like a rolling ball of all of these people before you see like there's now like two of this like dark-skinned woman who's like one of them is holding like two of her kids, and she's like starting to pull these kids back up, and the other one is like starting to run away from this edge of the bridge. What would you like to do, Mountain?
Oh, this. I'm gonna try something. Yeah, I'm gonna pull out my longbow. Bonus action and snaring strike, and try to shoot at the one running away.
Gotcha. So she's probably like 40 feet away from you. I don't think in Saring Strike, I think it's like 90 feet, right?
And snaring strike is just a weapon attack, like when I hit with a weapon attack, so it doesn't really have a
Okay, yeah,
range.
so it's your bow's range. Yeah, you're golden.
Yeah. How? I was trying to remember. How did the inspiration thing work now? The new.
Gotcha. Like after you roll, before you know whether it hits, you can use your inspiration to add a d6.
Yeah, because I think I'll do that. Like try to add a d6.
Gotcha. So you've got 10, roll a d6.
So a 16.
Um, that is indeed what you needed to hit. Like as you like fire this arrow, you see as it like is basically like flying through the air, and you just like watch, and there's a little bit of like disappointment in your kind of eye as you're like watching this arrow fly right for like her robes kind of like flowing behind her, and you just see as the arrow like sinks into the actual like fabric that's just trailing behind, and blood just starts to stream out of the fabric. Roll for damage.
So that is 6. 6 damage. And then they have.
Does it take action economy to do? Yeah, I feel like you've got other.
Oh no, the ensnaring strike is a bonus action. So
Well, no, but can't you do like your hunters like extra like D10 or something? Just isn't it just like you get to do it once per turn or the first time you deal damage?
oh I could put favored foe on, because that's just when I hit someone. And the Colossus Slayer is if they're damaged from before.
He was
So,
bleeding already. He was indeed damaged.
okay, yes, then let's see. yeah, then I'm gonna put on both of them. So that's one extra D8 and one extra D4.
The favorite foe doesn't take action economy?
Nope, it's just when you hit a creature, you can mark them.
Gotcha.
And then, oh no, wait, I can't use this actually, because that's gonna be concentration, and I'm already doing that on ensnaring strike.
Okay, okay.
So an extra 7 damage.
Gotcha. So a total of 13 then.
Yeah, and then they have to make a DC saving throw of 12 for strength, like strength saving throw of 12 to see if they're ensnared or not.
Yeah, so you see as this woman is like dragged down by the vines that kind of like come up from like the arrow sinks into like the fabric of her robes, and like from like the ground like vines start to like flow up and out of that area just like beneath where the arrow kind of stuck in, and these vines start to like lash around her, and you see as like each vine like grasps onto like a part of her fabric and like pulls it down, the fabric almost goes from this kind of like off white kind of like dirty like khaki kind of color into like this deep kind of like reddish pink, and you start to see as these vines like cinch down tighter and tighter, like the humanoid form starts to like go, and you start to see almost like kind of a canine form, and this thing is like writhing and like pulsing its muscles against the vines, and it can't quite get free. Like each time it tries to like flex and strength through, like you see these vines like worrying that they're about to snap, and then it kind of gives way and the vines cinch down even tighter than the time before, and then it tries to muscle free and the vines cinch down again, and after a moment of these vines kind of wrapping down and restraining this creature, you're going to see this thing has like three appendages: a really long kind of tail section with two spiked like almost uh oh man, not like canine teeth, but like spear kind of tip, like claws almost. Its front kind of appendages have like six little kind of fingers on them. Each of them are almost like kind of like sticky kind of like suction cups almost. How it's like grasping onto the ground and it's like flexing with this tail. And its face is like a really long kind of dog like, almost like dragon like face, and all across its back it has these long like kind of like fleshy little like kind of suction cups that like stand on little eye stalks almost, and there's like six of these stalks that basically lead down this tail. Very much nothing you've seen before. This is clearly some other kind of life than is like normally basically seen inside of the city. Um, and as it kind of like flexes, the vines kind of take it down further and further. It's going to go to Jinx. What would you like to do, Jinx?
So about how far am I away from this right now?
It probably got about 30 feet away. So you're say like 35 feet kind of hypotenuse wise. You can't quite get to it for melee, but you could easily get to it for pretty much casting slash like throwing your boomerang kind of thing.
And
Did
is
you
it
want
currently
to
like
do something
grappled?
melee wise? My bad. Did you want to do something melee wise?
Not necessarily. No. Right. No, I'm not touching that thing. Is it currently grappled right now by like the vines or?
Yeah, essentially it is currently restrained, so it is effectively grappled and restrained.
Okay. I guess I'm just gonna like keep it pretty basic on this one, and I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go for the old talk a little trash to it. I thought you didn't need our help, but you're looking awfully stuck now. All right, I'm gonna do vicious mockery on him. and it's 14 wisdom.
Is that effectively the end of your turn?
Yeah, I don't have anything else planned.
How much damage are you doing, and are you closing any distance at all?
I'm doing max or no min damage one, and yeah, I'm gonna run up like I want to stay kind of like out of reach of it now in case it stays grappled, but I need to get closer to it to like so I'll use maybe like 25 or 30 feet.
And that gives it disadvantage on the next attack that it makes, right?
Yeah, that's exactly how it's worded. The next attack roll it makes before the end of its turn.
So you see as like the vicious mockery just kind of like breaks this creature's like will for a moment. And it kind of like looks to you and you see like these little like kind of puppy dog eyes on this horrific looking creature. It looks like a like fleshless dog is kind of giving you like puppy eyes from beneath this like net of vines that are like tearing its flesh down deeper and deeper into like the cement of the street, and it just looks to you and it's like, I was never your enemy. And it looks like back across the bridge, and you're just going to see as it again tries like one last kind of like flex to see if it can break its way free of these. And this time your DC Malchin is 12, right?
Yeah.
This time it breaks the vines free, and it is going to start to run again, and doing a very similar function. It is basically going to run into like the closest group of people who are kind of like um, just like near enough by. Let's see. Um, Yeah, and this time it's a group of people who are like fleeing, and it kind of like leaps into this group, knocking over like two or three people, and the same thing's going to happen where you see two of the same people are now running away. So like this time instead of like one of the people like stayed and like collected children, it's like diving into this group and there's an extra person now fleeing with them. And it's not as clear. Do either of you have a passive perception? God damn it, this is shit. I think both of your passive perceptions are over an 11, right?
Yeah, mine does. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so there's no reason to say that either of you can't pick out which one it is. It did a much better job of diving into this next group of people and trying to like cover its tracks. But you still have a solid sense of like which one like dove in, kind of rolled out, and as they kind of like collected themselves, everybody's still fleeing, and you've got a solid sense of like which one it is still. But effectively, it's doing kind of that same thing where it's fleeing, and it's going to break off of like Lower God Row and into one of the side alleys after a moment, and then it's going to go to Mountain.
Happy enough to those puppy dog eyes, and I don't think I'm gonna try to follow him. It's like, uh, did we like maybe just attack someone you just didn't want to be bothered?
So he kind of puts that in the air to you, Jinx, and is that essentially Mountain's turn? Are you kind of like holding there, letting this thing like at least for now like run out of your sight?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't attacked us even once. Has attacked everyone else. The only like harm it seems to have done was like with the kid, and that seems more to be distracting us. So he's like, yeah, I think maybe we messed up a bit. So he's just staying put.
Do you follow suit with that, Jinx, or are you continuing after it?
No, I think I wouldn't even notice that Malchin didn't attack it again. I would maybe have expected him to. And I'm gonna run right after it.
Gotcha. So if it broke down an alley, it doesn't necessarily have to get outside of your view, um, by what you can like make up in the distance wise. Um, I'd say you're probably say like 5 to 10 feet behind it as you clear that alley and like see the person who like rolled out of that like conglomerate of people like it tackled, and you kind of see this person like running down this alley.
Okay, I'm gonna try suggestion now then. And I'm just gonna yell, "If we're not your enemy, then let us help you." And that'll be my suggestion.
And that's a wisdom.
Yeah, wisdom 14.
Ooh, this is an interesting one. I'm not sure it's gonna fight against you. Its initial thought is to not basically be noticed for what it is. I feel like healing somebody is a good way to recognize like the anatomy that you see is not the anatomy that you're healing. Versus you guys have already seen its true form. Make a persuasion for me.
23.
Yeah, so as it runs down the alleyway, you kind of like shout out your suggestion. I think you said like, if we're not your enemies, at least let us help you. And you kind of see as it like takes like two more steps, like slows down. You see as it like kind of like changes form, um and without making you do a roll, it's vaguely like familiar of somebody like just on the street where you just were, and it's just like doing like another form, and it kind of like turns to you as like this old woman, with like a shriveled face, kind of like hunched over, with like a cloak kind of covering much of her face, and you can still see from like the side of her robes that same like area where it's like bleeding from, like the side of its abdominals, and it kind of like hobbles over towards you, and you would help me. I bet at least pretended to make that a female voice, but she basically says to you like, and would help me.
I don't see why not. I mean, that was our initial insight. I mean, at this point in time, I'm gonna try to like. I imagine Malchin's getting closer. Or at least saw me go around the corner.
Yeah, I think staying inside of initiative at least a little bit there, effectively Malchin like would then realize like that you ran after it and still continued around that corner. So theoretically, Malchin, what do you think you would do when, despite like stopping, despite kind of saying something to that effect, Jinx like continues off? What do you think Malchin's doing?
I mean, I would follow after him after that, but if I see them like not fighting, probably like stow my bow and everything. Just
Gotcha. So when you like, do you think you're gonna kind of like casually walk up? Do you think you're gonna like jog up, and round that corner? How do you think that looks?
yeah, they probably see him like slowly jogging up, like not in any hurry.
Gotcha. So you kind of like jog around that corner to basically see like Jinx is relatively casually speaking to this little frail old woman, who stands kind of like up to his like breastbone, and she's just kind of like looking up at him from like 5 feet away. Probably not gonna confuse you at this point to guess who the old woman is, but effectively you're like looking down this alleyway, and the person who you expect to see running away from Jinx is not there, and Jinx is like focused on this little old lady. But yeah, if you kind of stow your bow, we'll kind of like stow the idea of initiative as you guys like have this creature kind of in this alleyway. Um, let's see. Yeah, I think after Malchin kind of like crosses uh that like area within moments of kind of like stowing your bow, you're gonna see a group of guards who come over the bridge. And they kind of three guards. They're gonna cover the bridge, probably coming over something, and we heard the screaming. Has anybody seen anything? Someone running through here? And they don't really like describe this thing. They don't say like a guard, like a wounded guard coming through here. They just kind of say like someone. And they're just kind of like asking different groups of people, and eventually they kind of like um you they'll kind of like latch onto a little bit like Malchin, like, you, what did you see? What were you doing?
Yeah, I just there was like some suspicious persons. I think they were using magic to disguise themselves, but yeah, not sure where they went. In the corner and they were gone.
Roll a deception check here.
Yeah, that's the good one. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's a 3.
So they are going to kind of looking over, need to lock this area down. Need someone who can see through their magic. And they're just going to start to gather people on the street, including the three of you, and just trying to like get as many people like rounded up. Um, but right now it is basically they're trying to kind of collect like 15 or 20 people, and there's currently the three of them, and you can see like occasionally like they're trying to like look to one another like, we're gonna have to send one of us to get a mage. So they kind of like gather like the 15 or 20 people who are on the bridge and in this immediate area, and they're starting to recognize that they can't keep everybody here. And you kind of have like the three of them kind of watching everybody like in like this little like basically tiny little area of the city that they're holding people, and they're kind of like looking over each other, and they're like, all right, we're gonna have to send for a magic user. And you just see as the guards are kind of like looking over each other, trying to decide who gets sent for it. And they're basically making this decision. What are the three of you doing, or I guess realistically, what are the two of you doing as you kind of see this happening? Are you going to stick your necks out there against the guards to help this creature? Are you going to like rat out the creature? You're gonna try to like escape in a moment when they're not paying attention. What kind of thoughts are crossing your mind here as you're now like kind of tied up with this thing?
Yeah, I'm thinking we try to slip out like when they're not looking, or try to create a diversion, and then slip out and help the creature. Something about those puppy dog eyes and that look it gave me. I wouldn't feel right not helping.
Yeah, especially since I feel like most of this is our fault.
And honestly, I mean, it really just got escalated because the kid. Nobody really likes kids. I mean, we've all wanted to chuck one over a bridge.
Alright. So you see as two of the guards kind of like look to the third, and they send him off, and he starts to run off to the south. And you basically understand like from what they said, like he's running to Delver's Square. He's probably say like 5 minutes before he could possibly get back from the guardhouse there. But he is effectively running off to Delver Square and the guardhouse that is right across that area. What are you guys thinking here? When you got two guards kind of guarding about like 20 people here on the north side of this bridge in Temple District.
So I'm gonna try to wait till the other two guards aren't looking, and I want to go for a like a minor illusion of like the third guard who left, yelling, "I found her! She's right over here!"
Gotcha. So waiting for like a minute or two to go by, and then you basically have like across the bridge on the south, um, that like other guard basically yell out for that.
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
Minor illusion. How far away can that be cast?
So it's a 30-foot range is where I'm casting it from. And then it says if you create a sound, its volume can range from a whisper to a scream. So I want to just make it sound like it's coming from over like the bridge or whatever. But like, like within earshot, but I guess out of eyesight.
That actually reminds me though, you don't have like greater illusion, right?
No, I only have the minor and prestidigitation.
Yeah, so you can create a sound or an image of an object.
Oh yeah, I was just going for the sound. I was just going for like the sound of him like yelling like from out of sight, like over the, you know what I mean?
Okay. I got you. So like the sound is coming from like the bridge that is of the other guard kind of yelling for I found her.
Yeah,
Um
exactly. I'm hoping they basically just ditch us and go running to the other guard, and that gives us enough time to get out of there.
I feel like a 12 and a 1 is sufficient to do it. Yeah, the two guards kind of like look to all of you and they just say, "You're all still being detained. Stay here." And they're gonna run off and start crossing the bridge. So I think for what it's worth, you guys see is like everybody just kind of like looks around and like nobody's really like moving. But I assume like the three of you like go to move pretty quickly here and kind of clear out, and almost all of this other like 17 people are gonna just kind of stand up and like just kind of start to like move on their way as the city block kind of like continues off on its own.
I got places to be and people to see. I ain't just standing around here. Let's go. And then, yeah, we'll like just go on our merry way.
So if you guys cross basically from the bridge you're at is like right where 147 is. This is the Street of a Million Gods. And we move over to the left, to the west, and go uphill. You guys can basically take Sunrise Street and use that to cross over into Midtown on like the other side of Delver Square. Entire time you can kind of wander with this person. You can burn a healing spell to heal them of their injury. Um, uh, what kind of questions do you have for them other than kind of like helping them to heal? Like, what kind of thoughts do you have?
Yeah,
Or
so
you,
I
are
will
you
burn a healing.
do you potentially want to have like a break here and think about what you would like chat with this person as you guys basically like, if you guys walked right to like the Delver Square, you've got like 40 minutes. If you guys were just like walking into Midtown and continued on to like Sachez, you've got like an hour and a half to get kind of thing. It just kind of depends on like what you guys might want to ask this thing.
Yeah, I was thinking like have it just walk with us and keep kind of going on course. Like so we're off course, but we're still kind of on course. But I'm okay taking a break too.
So yeah, we kind of just diverted, like having crossed from like around 147 to where you saw that guard like injured, to basically like moving back over to the west and crossing to the next bridge over, which I still don't have a name for, but near kind of like that 176. And you're kind of coming down Sunrise Street, kind of take it down Tavern Row, and that kind of gets you back on line to head towards what is it, like Center Street down southwest. And then I think from Center Street it's not Yeoman, Fairbriar. Oh wait, no, Fairbriar is by Tavern. It comes in. What is that? Oh, it looks like Ugly Cord. It's kind of weird how my map, like my really detailed map, like cut up into tiny little sections. It's definitely difficult at times to translate.
I'd be lying if I didn't. I told you I didn't want to know what the hell this thing is and what it was running from. So I think that's probably top of my list for things to ask it.
Keep speaking as if I am not walking with you right now. I'm not a thing, just another being in the world.
Oh, I know. Obviously, we stopped because it looked like you needed some help. I can understand you'd be apprehensive, but I could see in your eyes there that look. That's what made me change. I could see the fear, and I could tell that you needed help.
Um, yeah, I don't think it really has like a good kind of an explanation for like what it is. It doesn't like know how to like say it in common kind of thing. So by the time you like ask it to kind of like describe effectively like its race, you kind of have this thing like describing like race and culture. And I would say you can kind of pick out effectively the word what this culture is Hirag. But again, it doesn't necessarily mean much, as this is effectively like what you can pick out from its language. Um, that just kind of like stands out, despite like the actual language is effectively as foreign as anything you've ever heard. Yeah, Dwarvish, Elvish, and Halfling. I would say neither of you kind of pick up anything about like um what this thing is. And kind of like from the way it kind of describes it, it's almost like describing um that it's people like have been stranded here, um and kind of just like exist in hiding. And it just kind of describes themselves almost as like being just some more of the humans who kind of exist here. um Let me get an intelligence history or a wisdom nature check. I like nature. That would be intelligence as well. So yeah, nature or history check for me.
That is a 7 for me.
Whole lot of not knowing. Yeah, like in the long run from you guys, like you can basically understand that this is like some sort of other minor race. There's a lot of different kind of like minor races that exist in the city. The Tritons are kind of one of these people. You're not necessarily somebody who would say you're stranded here. That's probably among the most unique things about how it describes things, is just kind of like stranded nature.
Damn, that's a sort of sad existence, but I guess we're all sort of stranded in a way. I feel your pain. On just out of curiosity, what exactly was it that had stabbed you or whatever? What were you running from?
I was minding my own business when apparently someone see through the magic of my disguise and it brought down the guards on me. Do what I always must. What usually works is to flee long enough to hide, till apparently my injury was too much for you to ignore, and your goodwill nearly as dangerous as ill will.
Jinx pulls out a cigarette and lights it and just is like deep in thought. What you think, Malchin? I mean, I don't got any reason not to believe it.
Yeah, I believe it too. And again, I apologize. Wasn't That situation wasn't really the best. I'm sorry for the arrow.
Um, uh, yeah, I mean, I think overall, like, is not really like holding any sort of grudge at all for you guys. So, like, with the sorry for the arrow, it's kind of along those same lines of like, there's no need to worry, at which we can recover. But other than that, like, do you guys have any other thoughts towards this creature, or are you just gonna kind of go on your separate ways? What are you thinking at this point?
So that's crazy. I mean, we've gone 30 something years on this earth. Never run into one of you again. I mean, so this is it. This would be just a story. We'll never be able to find you again. I mean, that was a one in a million.
Our survival depends predominantly not being seen, but there is a certain comfort to be felt by those who don't us. And now,
Interesting. I mean, it makes perfect sense. I mean, I'd never even know to look for you, let alone to hunt you. Um, I'm I'm glad, honestly, we got to know you a little bit here. Let's just say going into the future, though, we did want to get a hold of you again. Say we were curious about some things or something like that. Uh, would there be any way we could reach you?
roll a d100.
79.
I do not keep to the same habits for long. I do not think there is a way for us to keep in contact.
It makes sense. And honestly, I don't even know what we'd keep in contact for. But I mean, we did technically save your life. And now I'm the type of person I just do things out of the goodness of my heart. So I would never expect anything in return. But if ever you did feel like you owed us something and wanted to get a hold of us to like talk about, just things or deliver some magic items or whatever, we stay downtown at the Goblin House. It's pretty easy to find.
If you share the location of the Goblin House, they can indeed contact you if you give up that location.
Yeah, I mean, we're always down for like cool missions and stuff. We just found out about the Chaos Archaeotech, and then now you guys. So I'm pretty open to communication. And if you ever just can't remember what we said, of course, this is the legendary Delva Malchin, the one man army, and then his sidekick, and Squire Jinx. Nice to meet you, and I will bow. And it is customary to exchange items upon meeting a creature of an unknown race. So I will offer it a flask of holy water.
As you bow to it, you'll hear that same kind of like name kind of repeated where it's Chirag. Um, and let me get an intelligence from each of you.
11 for Mashin.
A natural one for me.
Mouchin, you might start to put together when it says Chirag Abnahuf, that its like name might be the like Abnahuf part or maybe Nahuf. But basically this thing kind of repeats like um it's kind of a weird thing where you're still trying to figure out like a whole other kind of language. But the way it's kind of structured, it might be like Chirag might be like the name of their family, might be the name of their culture. Abnahuf might be something else, but it might also be like almost kind of like son of kind of thing where it gives like a little closer delineation. But this thing basically names itself in that bow as Chirag Abnahuf. I would say it's beyond Jinx at that time to kind of connect those dots. Um, it doesn't really have equipment to exchange anything with you. So when you hand it a flask of holy water, it's going to take a sip of it and hand it back to you.
No worries, keep the change. I didn't expect anything in return. I was kind of hoping for that look just one more time, though. And I'm going to look over at Malchin and give him the nod. Like, you know what I'm talking about.
You see like the little old lady, like as she like bows, like one more time, like gives you like little puppy dog eyes. But other than that, she's going to basically make her leave probably around when you guys get to like Center Street. She's gonna turn like east, south, northeast rather. Yeah. So when you guys are like leaving Tavern Row, no, she's not gonna do that. I think she's gonna continue down Tavern Row. Yeah, because she wants to avoid Delver Square right now. And basically walk on her way, getting back up out of this way.
What a strange afternoon, Malchin.
Yeah, that certainly took a turn for the weird.
Absolutely mind blown. They've been among us this whole time, trapped here. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, but at least they seem friendly enough when they're not being threatened.
Yeah, right when it reached like its peak, like scary, like horror monster, just know your ugly look. It then culminated into just the most adorable puppy eyes I've ever seen.
Yeah, that was certainly not what I expected from when the first glance at that creature. Or first,
I'm
I
a,
love that you guys can just completely ignore the fact that its first thought on getting away is to chuck a young child off into a river. And you're just fully on board with ignoring that.
it's just a kid.
we fully address that. They're a dime a dozen, and they all have their moments where they deserve to be chucked off a bridge. Now, I will light a cigarette though and offer one to Malchin and say, now, what if that whole time it was not under our control when I cast the spell on it, but actually it had already cast the spell on us?
What? Just what?
I'm just saying, what if it had mind controlled us into helping it get away? Think about it.
I think I'd rather not think about it. I, hmm.
Yeah, that's crazy. Anyway, you want to pop on down to Chasse?
Yeah, sure. Let's see if we can find Phon. Oh,
You didn't get hurt back there, did you?
no. Didn't attack us, just tried to shock that kid.
Yeah, that was kind of strange. I understand though, create the diversion, the choice between saving the child or like chasing after it. It's actually quite genius.
Yeah, but
If you guys actually brought up that with the creature, like why it threw the kid over, you think you would have?
I think I would have asked. Marsh at least would have asked, like, did it like just try to throw it because feel threatened by us, or why? Like,
Yeah, kind of like your response from it was figured it was easier to throw one of your young over than to try to get both of you over the edge.
So maybe like get rid of one of us to go after the kid at minimum. Yeah, I mean it's actually a good plan.
yeah, very pragmatic, if nothing else.
So we know it displayed intelligence. Quite interesting. I hope one day, just out of nowhere, it just suddenly reaches out to us, long after we've even forgotten of its very existence. Doesn't seem that out of step, though, honestly. I mean, think about it. We did just find out about like crazy chaos tech. Now we're getting bit by vampires and chasing down necromancers. We're bounty hunters. Now an alien race. I mean, I'm pretty open to basically anything happening at this point in time.
Yeah, anything certainly seems to be a possibility right now.
Effectively, that is an entire humanoid race that you guys could interact with on a regular basis and never actually discover.
Right? I mean, we live with goblins, so like pretty much anything's cool at this point in time.
Well, it's one of the things of because it is meant to be the like metropolis of there's like Tauren, there's orcs who live here, like everybody except for dark elves are welcome. If you're a dark elf, just death.
What's your guys' race, Malchin?
Oh, technically Triton.
Oh, okay. It's like the sea guys.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I just saw that you were like blue, obviously. So
All right, so you guys can head off to Seshez. Let me get you to roll another d8 here.
all right, not to get further distracted, but because we did like an activity event like thing, I got a test to make sure that Jink doesn't have to like gamble at lunch or something like that. All right, so I got 4 on the D8.
And I got a 3.
So depending what you have going on here, Jared, with our rolls, I would think that Jinx's suggestion that we like stop by a little like bar casino type situation, have a couple drinks, and then get on to sachets.
You just rolled another one.
I rolled another one. It's meant to be.
So when you guys have your new little friend kind of like depart ways and kind of go on their way, um, you are close to the Ghostly Minstrel, and you do know that the Ghostly Minstrel does have underground games if you wanted to go in there and gamble. Um, Let me have you guys roll a perception check here.
Rolled a 19.
Hey, that's what I got, buddy.
Yeah, so as you guys are like basically watching this little old lady like wander away from you, you're going to notice that there is a individual like kind of like leaned up against the wall of one of these side alleys, like off Chandler Lane. And as she kind of like heads down Tavern Row and crosses like Center Street. So she's like headed, I have the circle to my bad. That's like Tavern Row and Center Street. And Chandler Lane is like right at the southeastern side of that last circle. And as she kind of heads that way, you see as like a figure just kind of like almost like rolls around the edge of Chandler Lane and just kind of like disappears from view as the little old lady like kind of like walks by. And then you basically see like right after she walks by, like two people kind of like come out of Chandler and head to the north toward Center Street, and one person heads south on Chandler, kind of following the little. And all three of these are pretty massive, probably like 6 or so foot tall humanoids. All of them pretty big, broad shoulders. All of them kind of like covered in cloaks. They pretty much cover all of their features, like just dark cloaks, kind of hanging like hoods pretty deep over their heads, so you can't really pick out good facial features. Even as they're walking on like a main street like Center Street, they're still very much being like super shady in how they kind of like try to hide their personage.
Does that look odd to you, buddy?
And that certainly looks suspicious, but are we trying to delay ourselves more? Do we try to do something about it?
I don't know, not really. Probably. Ah, dear God. Who knows? So can I kind of like peep what's going on here? Do I get an idea as to what's up? Do they look like they're about to just jump that old lady?
Only one is following them. The other two are actually kind of walking towards you guys. Are you guys continuing towards Delver Square, or are you going south towards Sachez?
Oh, I think we're headed to Sachez, right? Oh wait, potentially to the bar and gambling. I forgot about that. I did roll the
So
master once.
you guys are like in the streets on like Center Street between Tavern Row and Center Street, like talking about this. These two figures who have like started heading towards you two kind of like walk near you guys, and they're just going to continue up Tavern Row. Do you guys keep an eye on them? Do you let them just kind of like walk off? They might just be up to their own thing and they're just on their way. Um, they might be up to no good. But right now, it's just like something that sticks out while realistically you're sitting there thinking, like, hey, we're right by the ghostly minstrel. Like, we could go gamble and then still make it to Sachez, like, early enough that she should be there.
I would say that because I rolled a one, and don't let this influence you at all, Malchin. But because I rolled a one, I think I'm like full on like focused on gambling right now.
I think Malcolm would probably like keep an eye on the master moving towards us, like, but try to argue with Jinx. Like, I think we should maybe keep the gambling to after we're done. If nothing else, we might get some more money, and you could gamble more.
I get it. I get it. I'm not trying to make a thing of it. I'm just saying I got to sit down and just test my luck. I just have that feeling right now, and I'm gonna just like check my like kind of coin purse, like again that weird little habit.
So, like, as they're walking by, and kind of like passing almost behind you at this point, one of them, like, kind of overhears this, and you kind of like hear from behind you, looking for a game, hoping to make some money beneath the table. And you see like one of the figures stop. The other one's still walking away, but one of them kind of like stopped, and you can see he's like looking out from underneath his hood. You can see signs of green skin. This is probably an orc, and he's kind of like looking towards you, like, "I have a game, have money."
Uh, Man, we're really just looking to grab a drink and maybe just have a little fun. We're looking for a clean game anyway, so.
There are plenty who are wealthy enough to be separated from their money. Clean, easy.
Yeah, we were gonna get a bite to eat and a drink anyway, and I'm sure you guys don't have food or sustenance, so
If you don't like to win money, not everyone is good at gambling. Perhaps I mistook you, friend. He kind of like pulls his hood back down and like turns back to the northwest and starts to continue up Tavern Row.
probably play one game, Mountain.
I don't know. They look kind of shady, and yeah, I don't think we should be gambling right now. We are looking for someone. Maybe we should wait until after we find them at least.
Can I try to test against to see if you can convince me?
Yeah, I mean, we can roll. We can see if you can convince me as well if I give up.
Yeah, all right. So we'll just roll off clean to see which one of us is more convincing.
Yeah, sure. D20. Oh yeah, you're definitely more convincing.
Two natural ones and then a natural 20. Like Jinx wants to gamble bad, dude.
I think with that match with okay, just a quick game, and then we're out getting back to looking for fun.
Yeah, just one quick one and then fun. I promise after that. I just gotta scratch this itch.
So are you going after this person or are you going to the ghostly minstrel?
I guess since I rolled that natural 20, I'm going straight after this guy to go see what he's got going on.
Gotcha. So the two of them have almost kind of like caught back up to each other where they're almost back walking with each other as you kind of like head off behind them. And you'll see pretty soon after you start following them, the two of them turn down like one of these side streets.
Hey, my man, we changed our mind, bought us a little time, looking for that game.
Kind of hear like, follow this way. And he turns down like another side street. And it's just like one of those things where like you're gonna notice over the next few minutes of following them, like each time you like kind of catch up and get a sight on them, it's like follow, and like the hand comes up and they turn down another side street. Let me get a intelligence from you, from both of you, please. I think advantage for Jinx because you're a local. Doesn't matter. So what's the 13 amount to?
There's no modifier, straight 13.
Gotcha. Um, So yeah, you're vaguely sure like you're inside of like this kind of like Fairbriar district, like on the west side, like southwest of Delver Square. But where on earth like you are by the time you guys like round the corner and you see like the two of these figures are like heading in between, there's like six large pillars kind of standing up high, and you see this big like double gate entryway where there's like these 20-foot tall like doors, like stone doors behind this like colonnade, and you see the two of them kind of each push one like left arm out pushing the left door, one right arm out pushing the right door, and they just like open up these two big stone doors before them as they like step through this colonnade. And they basically like again kind of disappearing from view, like right as you kind of like come into view of this little like colonnade with these stone doors. I don't think I put shadow on this, so let's say what do you guys do as you kind of like come into view of this like colonnade and see the two of them disappear behind these doors? Do you just kind of like follow them into those doors?
Oh, do we get the impression that this is like nice, like money?
Midtown itself is one of the nicer areas. Being next to Delver's Square is one of the nicer areas. Is that kind of what you mean, or
Yeah, yeah. Like we don't feel like we're about to get like robbed right here.
roll an insight check?
It's a 7.
You don't feel like you're gonna get robbed right here.
Yeah, I'll just like shrug and then just walk in.
So as you guys step into the actual area, you immediately feel like you're gonna get robbed right here. As you guys like step through these doors and the two figures like close the stone doors behind you, and you basically see, did I really not? This is my one like orc looking motherfucker that I got right now. The two like figures like close the doors behind you, and you see in front of you like a massive like coliseum like setup where you've got like these two tiers, and up to the north and down to the south you can see like the first level that like overlooks this like fighting pit, and like there's spikes and things to keep like the actual battle like inside of the pit, and then you can see like the small little box where like the highest little portion is off to the east, and like you're just like not in the fighting pit, but you immediately have these guys behind you who just close the doors behind you as you've entered, um, and you're looking at the actual like central fighting pit. What's your initial thought as they kind of like close these doors behind?
Jink's just gonna look over at Malchin, look at like the doors, and he's gonna say, "You know, you're supposed to be the responsible one."
I mean, what? What? Why? I I was a pirate. God damn it!
So as we survey the area, do we see like other creatures? Like, do we get the feeling?
I would say you can see um there's a few humans like down in the fighting pit, and they're like dragging away like one body. Um and there's probably like a person inside of one of these like cages who you can see is kind of like rotting away and dying. And there's probably say like four people up to the north who are kind of like just sat in chairs, like overlooking this fighting pit. And there's like another three to the south, who are doing similarly, just kind of like overlooking this little area.
Oh, okay. I feel less uneasy now. I feel like there's activities you would expect to be going on. You know, for an underground fighting pit slash casino.
So yeah, they kind of like look to you and say, "Have you any interest in gambling for a champion?" or would you earn your way as a champion?
I see what's going on here. Just out of curiosity, what type of coin are you talking about? I'm not much of a fighter myself, but
When you say that you kind of like hear from over in the east, as this figure kind of like steps out and like raises his hands like up into the air, and you see just this like grayish green skinned human, who's like wearing a lot of like dark black leathers and kind of a brimmed hat, raises his hands up into the air and well, if you don't fight, you clearly must be a gambler. And there's no amount of coin that you can or can't wager here. Because if you lose coin you don't have, I'd be more than happy to take it from your flesh. So, how much would you care to wager? And you see is like some of the people like around the square like are like cheering at the idea of you becoming one of these champions who's basically lost so much earnings that you're now like an indentured gladiator.
I don't know about you, Mountain, but I'm got about 40 gold.
I wasn't really expecting to buy anything today. Don't really have all that much on me right now.
All right, well, you do you. Don't judge me. And I'm gonna grab out my coin purse and hold up the 40 gold. I'm looking for a clean wager, and I don't got all day. 40 gold right here. What are we working with?
How clean of a wager do you desire? Would you like to see life taken? Do you fear death and you'd rather see blood spilt, but everyone lives? Or as simple contest of skill, and blood need not be shed.
I'm not much for the savageries, and I don't really care about murder, but it's not my first choice. Not on an empty stomach anyway, so let's see a little game of skill. Little bloodshed don't bother me, though.
Gotcha. So you're going for like the third option, like just do something that's skilled, but nobody has to die and nobody has to bleed.
Oh, I don't really care if anybody like bleeds. That's like a healer. I would imagine it's a little less serious, probably. But not necessarily like looking to get anybody killed on my bets.
So like they drag like the one individual out who's like dead in the center area. And you see as once they like get down into like the central pit, two more champions kind of like come out of the central area, and you see this like about like 8 foot tall, like massive shouldered, like almost like 4 or 5 foot wide shoulder, like massive gray skinned orc who like kind of like lumbers out, and he kind of like takes to the like southern side of the arena, and then you see a small female orc who's like green skinned, and she steps out with like a big cleaver. What a tiny little miniature! With a big cleaver and like a shield. But she's clearly like a quarter of the size of this other massive orc, and she stands to the north. And you'll see as his as he like looks down, and you hear Lineal, I've told you not to fight. You can gamble whatever you care, but this arena's not for you. And you'll see as the female like orc like looks up and she kind of like um just kind of says like something to the effect of, the fight has been cast by your own rules. I must bleed or win. The fight has been cast. Who do you wager for, father? So you get to pick here. Want to bet on the female, or do you want to bet on the orc, the gray skin orc, green skin or gray skin?
I mean, he's like 4 times the size. And I'm putting my money on the gray skin.
If you must. And he'll like take your wagers and he'll take like the other wagers. Um Again, I'm horrible at gambling. I don't really know how odds work, so it's gonna basically end up basically like they come back to even odds. And we're just gonna do this as it's gonna be a straight D20 on this one. As she like in the actual battle is like 5 times as fast as he is, but like one hit from this thing is enough that it like knocks her down and out kind of thing. So their fight is just that classic kind of like brute versus agility. And at present we're going for even odds. And we'll just do D20 rolls on this for high roll kind of thing.
So do I just roll for the gray orc?
Yeah, yeah.
All we need is one, big boy. Land it clean.
You can add a D6 to yours.
18 plus 6, 24 total.
So you see as like the first like strike, like she's like running up and almost like leaping up over some of these like pikes around the edge of the arena, and she like goes to like strike down into like the back of this creature, and it just like swings around in like a seems like a rather slow movement, just but like it's almost like it was coming up to like smash her while it's in front of her, and just like the club of its arm kind of coming back just smashes into her as she flanks it and just like smacks her down to the side, and she like falls down into the dirt, kind of like slides out in that like little superhero kind of landing, wipes like blood from her chin as she like spits up some blood, and she just looks, well, there's always double or nothing. And she like kind of like centers herself, takes her side of the arena. And he like bets kind of get paid out. Um so you now have up to 80 gold that you can gamble with. And you'll see as this like figure from like the center top kind of like looks down, and he's, you can't just take my gold and run. Should stay for more. You have round two.
It's not so much that we would be taking your gold and running. Think of it more as advertising. And look, you won. I'm coming back for sure. But we really do have shit to do. I didn't think this was going to be like a whole thing. I thought we would grab a couple beers, roll a couple dice, and be out of here. So we'll definitely be back, though, now that we know where you're at and everything. I'm Jinx, this Malchin. Malchin, if you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
So
Turn.
before you actually introduce yourself, when you basically start to allude to you're ready to go, he's just going to stand up and like leap down into the center. And as he like smashes down like 20 feet below him into the like earth, he like stands up seemingly unfazed, and he just kind of stands to, Jinx, you're not welcome to go. You're here for me to ask the questions that I need. So you're like in the middle of like trying to say like peace out, and you like see these two orcs behind you, and you hear your name come from behind you before you've even introduced yourself, and it's just like, oh shit. Um, and he's just going to kind of approach towards you guys, and he's going to look one to the other. I know you as well, Malchin. This facade should have been more interesting. And he'll like hand over like the 40 gold lions that he owes you, and kind of say, why are your marauders bothering about my brother? Why is this Phon? Who are these other Vabuza and Eugene? Seraph and Davros? Twin Star Marauders, you all keep coming up, and my brother is dead. What business have you with the Cran? And I don't think either of you necessarily have any reason to know next to anything about what's going on.
Yeah, I think Malcolm was. Sorry to hear about your brother. I am completely lost here. I don't know any of who you are. Never heard of you. Or, yeah, I think you seem to know much more than we do about all this.
Yeah, I'm honestly pretty confused as well. Obviously, we know some of the characters in your little lore drop there, but I who is your brother? I'm curious also, what like is the main creature that we're talking to right now?
Effectively, he's a half orc. Um, so yeah, when you guys kind of say those, let me get a persuasion from both of you here to see how believable you are. You're not lying, so it's not deception, but I feel like persuasion is kind of where you're at.
24 for Jinx.
And a
So
12 for Malcolm. Sorry.
he kind of responds to you guys like, um, shit. I guess I should have actually prepared his brother's name. It's like the one that I don't. Give me 1 second. Your friend. We're seen at Torian's going through the runes of his fire. Or really, I should say, like, the runes of his home. After they burned it to the ground, you're telling me you had nothing to do with this fire. You know nothing about Torian's death. And you can kind of tell, like, he's feeding information, your Lord Jop, asshole, because he's trying to read you. This is somebody who is tracking down information that is like kind of like beyond him and kind of like lost because again all he really knows is like his brother's dead and he's got this list of names that keep showing up. So this is very much one of those situations, a lot like how you guys go about investigating things, where it's like you're dropping information to try to see how people react. And he's doing the same thing to you guys. So, he's kind of like dropping, like, basically, you now can understand, like, part of what's going on here is this is someone investigating their relative died in that fire.
And do we know whose place that was that burned down, or like what the? I mean, I know it was mentioned before. Do we know how that connects to any of the Fawn situation?
I think it's all kind of obscure enough, and it sucks ass that effectively, um, Bob and or Eugene and Vabuza are the guys who did it. Because it was like the start of this like line. Um, but effectively, I would say this is the recognition that like they had cause to investigate that house, and it's now that you can basically realize like it seems like it was Tyrion Kron's. Who is Tyrion Kron? You don't yet know yet. Um, except for that he was probably the half orc who died in that fire. I think when you guys staked out your house, God, I don't even remember. It's like 4 months ago now for me as well. I think when you guys staked out that warehouse, you got the name of Kron um, from the guards that you took out there.
Yeah, all right, all right. Some of this is starting to connect now. I don't think we know anything that could help you, but we're obviously affiliated with the Marauders, and I can understand how it might seem coincidental that our names keep coming up, but I assure you we've nothing to do with the actual murder of your brother. But I would be happy to help you in any way that we can. I mean, a business owner like this in charge of a nice operation, I mean, why not? And I think I would be saying it in like, even though this place is like a fighting pit, like bar, gambling, underground house, Jinx is like saying this in like a 100% like, look, I respect what you got going on here. You're a powerful man in charge of cool things. Like, respect. I want to be friends with you.
So he's going to like look to one of these like shady figures who's like standing behind you, and he kind of like snaps his finger and he points to that person who's like hanging under the like chained like torture chamber like over the fighting pit, and they like bring this person down and like up to you guys, and you see is there like a frail kind of like facade almost of a body. Their body is like almost completely broken down, and this person just kind of like twitchy and just kind of like moving extremely erratically. You can see that they almost like fear every touch. There's like just kind of fright almost like takes over this person. And as they kind of like bring him forward, the orc's going to take out this like black substance, and he like lights it on fire, and then like puts it up to this person's face like in a pipe. Like he like puts it inside of a pipe, lights it on fire, and the person like immediately like shoots into like a kind of recognition, and they like take a big inhale off of this pipe. And you see is like this is the first moment this like shaky facade of a human like exists in this world, and it's just for like the recognition that they're like seeing this drug like lit on fire in front of them, and they take this massive like inhale, and you see as their body like just kind of like stands up straight, almost as if it has muscles for a moment, and then they kind of like collapse down to the ground and just like fall, and you just like hear like kind of murmurs from them, and then they're like cackling. And they like stand up, and they're just like standing high and just smash the orc away, and like this orc gets like sent up against this wall, And that person just like kind of like looks around at everyone, sees like I don't think you've heard his name yet, but the Kran like standing like right before you guys, and he like rushes towards Malchin. Malchin, what are you doing as he rushes towards you?
Yeah, I tried to like jump away, like dodge him, basically.
Gotcha. Roll a dexterity save or a dexterity check for me.
That is a 16.
16. Yeah, so he like smashes into you with his head, and he's going to deal like 3 bludgeoning damage to you, as he just like runs into you and almost like just like battering rams into you like with his head, and he's gonna slam you up against the wall behind. And as he kind of like slams you up against the wall, he just like kind of like spins and starts to rush towards the north. And this whole time, this figure's like cackling madly. And just like the next orc who's like right next um Jinx there, like goes to grab him and just like finally gets a hold of him, and you can just see this person as soon as their arms are like pulled back and they're being like grappled, they're like flailing their legs, like lifting their legs and their butt, and like just flailing their legs up like over their head, trying to squirm free. And the whole time this person's cackling madly, and then all of a sudden in an instant they're just silent. Their body stops working and they just like go limp. And then the orc looks back to you. Know where you are. We're watching you. If I find out who did kill my brother, I will have you shriveled up for death in a fortnight. Find what you can. Help me where you will, but betray me. You'll be little more than a drug addict, ready to die for their next hit of pleasure. And he like pulls out another little jar of that black substance, and he kind of like shakes it. And just like the little bit of a sound of this like kind of like powder shaking in the jar, you see like the eyes like pop open of this figure, and they're just like staring like listlessly towards this, and they like flip over. They're starting to crawl across the stone towards instance is a mix of psychosis and wishing and wanting for this drug. And he'll look back to you. Take it for what it is. This is a second chance for you all. Don't cross me. Like the orc smashed up against like that southern pillar, kind of like shakes himself off, kind of moves forward. They each like push open these massive stone doors.
Keep our eyes open, our ears too. We'll be in touch, but we'll also keep an eye out for your people too. There's no need to follow us, but I understand.
So you guys can like step back out into like the main streets. Um, you made a little bit of gold off of this guy. You got the message kind of like sent from whatever sort of like organization this is. You guys have at least a little bit more information. But I still think like of a mission where you're supposed to be vastly ignorant. It does suck that they like stepped out with some of the information, but it also is one of those things like this was always supposed to be something where you're vastly like walking into a blizzard with little more than like a hey, you need to find snow and you're walking in a blizzard kind of thing. Like you're supposed to be kind of clueless throughout this kind of investigation.
So did we get the feeling that those were the people that have been following us or asking around about Fawn and everything? That was what we were getting, right?
Yeah, my bad. This was effectively getting like closer and closer. And it was one of those things where they effectively tracked you down as you guys were heading to investigate that. So you are welcome to continue on to find Fawn. But yeah, like that's kind of like the effect of they were searching for you this whole time. And you guys were trying to search for them.
Yeah, sick. Okay. So I mean, we kind of just figured out what we needed to figure out. Now, in hindsight, too, after seeing like these like cloaked figures and everything, do I get the feeling also that was who I was seeing at my show?
Roll a insight check.
21 total.
The figure at your show might fit some of the humanoid, like some of the human, like people that you would have seen there. But for somebody who is vastly using orcs, most of like the people in his service are going to be orcs and half orcs. Um, the person that you saw over and over again is too slender and kind of like too like almost lanky to in general have more than like a sliver, like the faintest sliver of orc genealogy. Orcs tend to just be all around too big and brawny um, to really be the person who was searching after you. Um, Now, again, you're close enough to Delver Square where you could go back to the Ghostly Minstrel and see if, anybody was asking similar questions about you. Or you could kind of continue on your way and just like ask it another time with the Ghostly Minstrel. But that's kind of where I would think. With that, you have a solid reason to say they don't fit the general description as being orcish. And then if you really wanted more information, like go back to the minstrel and see if anybody has information like about it.
Oh yeah, I was kind of getting the feeling it might be that vampire. So we'll see. So what you thinking, Mountain?
Oh, I'm thinking they were assholes, but I'm thinking maybe we should. I know they didn't find anything in the burnt down house, but maybe we could ask around there if, now that we know that what was his name, Tyrion, that was his house. Maybe someone knew him.
Could talk to Fawn. Maybe she's got some kind of connections with this half orc, his brother. I mean, seems like an obvious choice, right?
Yeah, I could do that as well. Could ask her, like, see if she knows the dead half orc brother.
And then we can go looking around. I'm sure she could at least steer us in the right direction. Right now, we've got some names and a couple clues, but we don't really have a story.
Yeah, well, better to start somewhere at least.
But I'm not opposed to poking around that fire, too. Wouldn't mind having a little information before then, though.
Yeah, you're right about that. We should probably ask Fawn at least. See if she recognizes the name or if she knows the person.
Jink's gonna like look over his shoulder while we're talking and looks like super fucking excited. So I'm gonna like just kind of look around, make sure like nobody's like staring at us or anything like that. And then he's gonna open up his coin purse and show Malton 81 gold. Malton, what the hell just happened? I thought for sure we were gonna lose or die. I can't believe you let me lead us in there again. We should have got captured or killed. And you could just tell he's like high on the moment.
Oh, you're right. You did think you had some luck going on. Probably helped us a bit.
Sometimes you get that feeling and you just know you can't lose. Let's get out of here.
So it doesn't take you long to figure out, like, you've like basically wandered over to like Bell Street, and like that fighting pit was like somewhere between like Bell and, what is that, like Tavern Row kind of thing. And you just kind of like get yourselves out of the little like maze of it and head down like what is it, Fairbriar Street, and you're pretty quickly like back through and into, you could easily cross like an alley, get yourselves to Rainy Lane, and then cross like another alley and get yourselves onto Nar Street. But you're pretty quick to find your way over to Sachez. Is that the plan though? Still going after Phon, or are you looking to go to the fire that was on Nar Street? Theoretically, if you walk down Nar, you're going to pass the fire.
Oh, well, that sounds legit actually. Maybe we're on the way to Fawn and then we end up passing the fire. So we're like, well, we're here.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Like checking it out just before we get to Phon.
I mean, I know I said we'd talk to her first, but I mean, we all right here. We can poke around.
Yeah, we might figure something out. That some more questions we could ask Phon, maybe.
So I think, looks like they did this on December 17th. So we're looking at a little bit over 4 months ago that the fire burnt down this house. So I would say at this point, you guys are like passing down Nar Street, and you can see some of the charred remains of these houses that burned, because it's not just one home that actually did burn. It was a section of this area caught fire. And you're kind of like passing through, and you can see like a general home, some of the homes that have like little bits of them replaced. But you can see now that they've got like sections framed, and they're not necessarily finished homes, but it's kind of like livable facades at this point, where there's a roof, there are walls, and like kind of sectioned off areas. So you could go in there and still investigate things. It is definitely still like a work site where these homes are being built. I feel like 4 months is probably like near finished kind of level. I don't know. I don't know enough about building a home to really say that, but I feel like that probably sounds about good to me to say, like, even in a metropolitan city, they're not just going to have a brand new house up instantly. It will take some time, but you guys still have like access to some of what is here. Um yeah, I wrote down 5 to 7 families lost their home. Yeah, so like if you guys just ask like around the initial thing, you would basically hear pretty similar thing where 6 families lost their homes, and 7 people died in the fire, including, um, after a while you could figure out that there was an orc, or rather a half orc, a human, and I want to say 2 humans actually. A half orc and 2 humans were in one of the houses.
That's a damn shame. I wasn't expecting the extent of the damages. What you want to do? Poke around in here a little bit, Malchin, or proceed to the destination?
I'm not sure. And it's been quite some time. Don't really think we'll find anything here.
Do you
Probably
think
better
you would
just sleep on.
ask beyond that? You guys like that's kind of me giving you some information just to like give you like basic what you might like ask of people in the area. Um but is there anything else that you would ask? Is there anything else that you're searching for that you would like head in there?
Yeah, I think. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think Malsh and this would like try to find ask around if there was anyone who was here when it was burning, like they saw when it happened.
I don't think you would have any shortage of finding um people who are like from this neighborhood and took part in trying to quell the fires, especially before the actual like firemen, because again there are active like fire brigades. One of them is right up north of here, right at the top of that big circle. That little fire symbol is like one of the fire brigades in this area. um, but fire is very dangerous in like cities of this like level, because effectively when a fire starts it can take the whole city. So you have to get fires put out, or like the city itself is in danger. So there's probably no shortage of any of these people you speak to took part in at least the initial bucket brigades, let alone later on. What kind of questions do you have to ask of those?
Yeah, probably ask around like if anyone knows if like where the fire started, like if they know that, like in which house or which area.
So you can pretty much tell from the burning, and you'll have some of the people who are explaining, might be some of the workmen, like take a break and they're chatting with you. You can tell some of these people like think of it as like, oh man, I'm tired of telling these stories. Some of these people like look at it as like, I'm happy to take a break to kind of chat about it. But you can basically see from like the areas where some of the houses are burnt. Like basically, this gives you kind of like a general central point here. And it basically narrows it down, and like they describe it. And as you're kind of like asking to narrow it down, basically figure out from the information that you have, Corridon Cran's house, the house where they found a half orc and two humans, that house is one of the like two that are in this central area. So from your information, I think it connects a dot pretty quickly here, where you can recognize like, and I think this is kind of what Vabuzin, Eugene also walked away with, that they had a reasonable um, clues to assume that this was an attack on Corridon Kran, that he was killed with this fire, or at least something happened and the fire happened like in that kind of attack kind of thing.
Yeah, and then he would probably ask around as well if like anyone knew like Terran Cran, if he lived alone or if it was like normal for him to have people over, or basically tried to sniff out if it was unusual that there was two humans in the house with him.
Roll an insight check.
Yeah, that's 4.
Nobody really knows a whole lot. Like you're gathering, like a lot of these people took part in fighting the fire. That's kind of what cities do. It's part of why it's like the neighborly thing. And as you're talking to these people, nobody really knows the half orc who lived there. This was basically, you're kind of like finding out like in hindsight, this was somebody who kind of like kept to themselves, and at least on some level didn't really participate in like neighborly things to do kind of thing.
And did I hear you right that it sounded like it was an attack to kill the half orc? and then it turned into the fire, or the fire was like to destroy evidence or whatever?
I think that's kind of where your evidence can easily go, is the recognition that the half orc's home was effectively like central to this location, to like where the way the fire spread, where the fire stopped. You have like a solid, like almost like bullseye to say like where did the fire start, and it's generally speaking right where the half orc's house was.
Okay, cool. Yeah, all right. Do you
So
want
for
anything else?
example, like the two houses that are in like the center of the fire are like this half orc who was shady and didn't really participate in the community, and like say like a little old lady who had like a little like sewing um like you know, will mend your garments and like tailor shop in her house. And it's like those two homes were like the center of the fire. So it's like, do you think it's like a shady tailor or like a shady half orc who, you know, is doing something that is not part of the community?
Yeah, I think I only have one question left for Malchon to ask at least. Then, uh, I'll ask around the people here. If he, can we like describe Phon? Do we have knowledge of how she looks enough to that we can describe her?
Um, I would say you guys can certainly describe her by name. You know her name is Fawn Quartermain. Um, I think some of the details that you guys have might give you some extra things to describe her by, like knowing that she works at Sachez, which is, you know, like you guys are like halfway down Nar Street, and she works on the corner about like 300 feet south of where you guys are. You can see Sachez's like sign for business, like southwest of where you are, or southeast of where you are. So like this is Sachez, like down here. So you guys can see the business. You could describe her by name and probably get people to respond. But like physically, I don't think you guys necessarily know what she looks like physically.
Okay, then I would just go like uh, Phon Quartermain, like uh, from Sachets. Has anyone seen her coming to like Tyrion Kron's house before? Like if they've seen her coming or going there?
I think the general response on that would be like people who recognize that she works down at the south end of Nar Street. But I don't think you'd have anybody who would have seen her like heading into any of these houses. Walking by, yes, people, you might have one or two people recognize like who the name is. Um, but like in general, I don't think you've got anybody who's gonna place her in like the location of these fires.
I think Jinx would kind of sneak in a little something as well. He would kind of like sneak in as Malchin's kind of wrapping up his questioning. I'm sure it must be rather annoying, all the people asking all the questions and constantly taking up your time. You've already had to fight this fire and dealt with all this effect on your community, so I feel for you here. But was there anybody in particular that people were asking about, or anyone in particular that came asking that stood out?
Roll a persuasion.
It's 11. Is it? Can I use my inspiration on that?
You can do a d6 to add a d6 to it now that you've rolled. That's kind of what I mean. Like you got to do the d20 ahead of time. So is that 15?
Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, total of 15 then with the inspiration. Now it's gone.
So you probably get a few people who like confirm like you know, there were city guards. There were like firemen, all things that kind of make sense. Um, you would hear, um, oh man, give me 1 second to grab the actual name. So many plans on where this day was gonna go, and all of them are useless now. You hear someone who speaks about like two different or like some people who speak about like a priest coming by, and one of like somebody else kind of like responds like, oh, brother, brother Fabier, uh Saint Gustav's right by the Delver Square. And then like the other person's like, no, 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 I no Fabiator. Wasn't him at all. An older feller. Big and that person's kind of like trying to like think for a few moments. And uh it's not a Lothianite. He follows Watcher of the Skies. And then the other one's like, "Ah, it's garbage. Fabitor was here. He is a Lothianite. It's crazy." And these two like argue about a priest being there. But basically you can kind of hear like those two priests had come by. And then I think you get like a little bit of confirmation that there were indeed like some half orcs and some shadier folk who have of late, like in the last like 2 or 3 weeks, kind of been coming by. But effectively, like the fire happened almost 4 months ago. There was some people who were like coming by and asking questions, and a lot of that died out. And then a few weeks ago, you started to have like the half orcs and like the shadier folk kind of coming by.
Oh yeah. So we got some leads then. Little confirmation also, and then we're not going into like the fawn questioning or conversation like completely blind.
So if that is essentially what you've got for like these people like around the actual like fire and the reconstruction here, do you continue on your way to Sesches?
What'd you think, Mountain? I think that pretty much answered it for me. I wasn't really expecting to get anything like crazy, but more just confirmation of what we already knew.
Yeah, same for me. So I think like going for sachets and see if we can find fun now would be good.
Yeah, and then we'll kind of like take note or whatever to the fact that the priests were over there, and then it might have been a different one. It might have been the Lothian priest or the wait, Lothian. Yeah, that's right.
So you guys should know at this point, this is part of what we went over earlier. Um, Part of where you can find Phon at any given point is at the temple of Saint Gustav, and Brother Fabiator Thisk is the priest at Saint Gustav's.
Oh wait, I thought Fawn would be at Sachets. That's where she works, right?
That's her job, yes. But like she spends most of her time at that chapel. That was one of the places where I basically told you guys at the start. You've got three places where you know to look for her. She lives on like Crispin Street. She works at Sachez, and then she spends most of her free time at St. Gustav's.
Oh, okay, I got you. So that would make sense why the priest would come looking for her, obviously, to make sure she was okay or see what was going on.
Yeah, like Brother Fabiator Thisk would not be terribly surprising because you already basically know the two of them spend a lot of time together because she is almost always there in prayer if she has free time, basically.
And is that the same gentleman we gave the relic to, or that was a different one?
You gave the relic to Brother Ambrosov of Saint Darius in Guildsman.
Oh, okay. So there's just like lots of different gods, lots of different churches in the different districts, etc.
Yeah, there's pretty much a chapel to Lothian in every single district. Midtown has 2 chapels to Lothian. So St. Gustav's is just one of them. And then in the actual temple district, they call it the row of a million gods because effectively there's thousands of gods that are worshipped here. On to Sachez.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
So you guys can walk down to the corner here. Pretty much no more chance for like a random encounter, as you're basically walking like a few hundred feet from the construction area down to the corner of Nar Street and Yeoman. And you basically see like on this corner street, Sachez is like just like kind of like an open windowed shop with like a little walk-in door like on the corner that you kind of like go under a little bit of like an awning to like step through the door. You can see that they've got like a lot of like fine dresses and generally, I would say, feminine clothing like on display. But a lot of what they have displayed is also effectively like really fine textiles like for making custom clothing as well. And when you walk in, you'll see that there are 3 women kind of like sitting at the counter. Not necessarily sitting, my apologies. They're kind of like all at like this kind of central counter, kind of chatting to each other. And they look up and you just see is like each of them kind of like looks to another. And then one of them approaches you too, kind of like holding out her hand, like palm up, and she says to you guys, like almost like holding it out, like, "Oh, welcome, gentlemen, to Sachez. My name's Rachel. How can I take care of all of your needs this afternoon?"
My friend here is a single Delva, and he's looking for a wife. You point us in the right direction, and I'll wink at her.
Oh wait, I forgot. What is it? You have scarred flesh, and he looks like a dog now, right?
Yep. Blue
Yeah,
skinned
so I
dog.
think she's gonna approach you guys, like almost like putting her hand out, like to kind of like have this like almost like high class kind of like kissing her fingers as she approaches like a lady, and then like she actually sees like the like burnt flesh and like the scars over massive portions of Jinx, and she sees like Malchin's face is like dog like and um, maybe not even as striking that you're a Triton, but now you don't even look like a Triton. And you're certainly not like a handsome Triton. And she like kind of has like a little bit of a stuttered moment, but otherwise continues forward. This is still somebody who's trying to sell you to. Um, and she kind of, uh, oh, wonderful Delvers, and what pray could we produce for you? Is there any custom needs that you have that we can fill?
We're not so much looking for things as we are someone.
Yeah, we're looking for Phon Quartermain. Is she at work right now, or?
There are many people looking for love, but I do not believe Fawn is going to be somebody who is looking for a husband at present.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please excuse my dry sense of humor. That was a joke because of our outward appearances. We're actually looking for Fawn to help her with some things. We don't mean her any harm or anything like that. We're affiliated with the Twin Star Marauders. The,
My bad. What were you thinking?
Oh, I was just gonna say, the group that saved her life.
Make a persuasion.
12 total.
12 total. Gotcha. So as that kind of conversation's like kind of continuing on, you see as like the other two women are still kind of like chatting. And two of you probably side eye notice that like the two of them have like kind of like split up and started to move away. And one of them's like walking towards the back. The other one's kind of like fixing stuff on some of the racks, and just kind of like say like oh well, we're part of those who helped Phon, and the like one who's just kind of like messing around on the racks, kind of closer to you guys, kind of like chimes in like, and you all helped her from and she's just kind of like fishing for more information about like effectively like 4 months ago you all helped her.
Yeah, a few months back, she was assaulted in an alleyway, and a couple of our friends had came to her aid, and we were hoping to kind of get in contact with her because we understand there have been some less than savvy parties asking around about her, and we need to make sure that she doesn't get caught up in anything.
There have indeed been some of these parties asking for her, and they seem to have gotten closer to at least recognizing that she is employed here, and they've gotten a little bit more gall to come in here asking for her as well. But to know whether they are a danger or are what they seem to be are apparently two different things. Let me have you roll um a perception check from each of you.
Yeah, that's a
Gotcha.
26
Yeah,
for
I mean,
Malchin.
Malchin's 100% going to basically be like recognizing the signs that like the one who like started to walk away towards the back room and kind of paused at her name. And as the conversation like continued on, she's like clearly like looking away from you guys but listening to the conversation. And as things kind of go, like they're kind of like questioning you along these lines of like recognizing like friends people have been asking about her. They're getting a little bit closer to where they've come here like 2 weeks ago, and then like last week they came in like every day asking about whether she was working at this time. And it's like they're getting a little bit more, so it feels a little bit shady that you guys are coming there. Um but they basically have like this kind of sense like your disposition is different in how you're asking these questions. And as well, instead of like asking about, say, like Vabuza, Eugene, Seraph, and Davros, or the Twin Star Marauders, you're actually saying you are a part of these. So things are kind of like twisting a little bit on how they're perceiving some of these things. But after a few moments of like kind of going through these like motions, she kind of like turns around, and you'll see is like the woman who was like walking away kind of comes back. And now I can like actually reveal how I should have kept it secret much longer. When she turns around, you're going to see she has a massive belly, that this girl is indeed pregnant. And she kind of like walks back up to you and kind of like is and if you are friends of mine, why are none of those who helped me returning, and you are all unfamiliar to me? And maybe like still kind of bringing up like you don't have the same like unsavory like air about you kind of thing. She's like recognizing like there's something different about you. and those who have been asking about me. Well, why don't I see Seraph? Why don't I see Davros? Why don't I see Eugene or Abuza? But she's basically like entered back into the conversation. And you'll hear her basically say like, Rachel, Karina, I'm fine. And like the other two women kind of like head a few feet back away. And they do the same thing where they're like messing around with some of the like clothes on racks. Clearly they're just like trying to like eavesdrop while you guys talk to Phon.
We mean you no harm. It just happened to be convenient that we were available to stop by the area and have a word with you. Everybody else is fine. They're just about doing other things, mostly exhausted from saving our lives, to be honest with you. But anyway, you can see we're not a threat, and we didn't want to come in here flashing around a bunch of names and a bunch of gold, looking all suspect. But to tell you the truth, I'm as close to speechless as I ever been. I wasn't expecting you to be with child.
Got like kind of like that awkward kind of laugh like well it wasn't expected. And she'll kind of like look when your friends saved me, I was worried. I had, and she basically kind of goes through like she had been dealing with morning sickness for most of like the weeks prior to being attacked. And her morning sickness was just kind of like one of those things where um just kind of felt like matter of the fact kind of thing. Never really was something that she felt like she had to uh kind of like bring up about like why I'm being attacked. I don't know. I have no clue. And then like her being sick was just always like it was just something else entirely.
Phone, I understand you didn't necessarily know why you were attacked, but I don't suppose you recognize the attackers or saw any signs or symbols or anything like that.
So oh man, this is where it boggles my mind too. So I think when you bring up like the symbols, the symbology of the dead dogs, no, dead dogs is the bar. Dread dogs, the white dogs. I can't remember what the kids, the pale dogs. When you bring up like the symbolism of the pale dogs who wear like the double black ring, um, and they're basically like that gang from the Warrens. When you bring up the symbolism of the pale dogs, she doesn't really have anything to say. I can still see their faces every night when I go to sleep. Uh, I don't remember ever having come in contact with them beforehand. You guys can like say you've got like drawings from any of like the four who saved her of the other two people that you encountered at the warehouse later that night. You guys can talk about them, describe them to her, show her like a drawing of those criminals, and she doesn't have any clue about those two people from like the warehouse on Abel Row and Ration Street. Um, yeah, I feel like, and then you could like describe Torrid and Cran, and it's kind of that same thing. Like from her perspective, she doesn't know any of these people.
Did that include the orc? She didn't know who he was. Half orc.
Yeah, yeah, that's Tori and Cran.
Uh, I don't suppose I'd be playing dumb if I didn't ask you the obvious question, Fawn. Who's the father of your child?
Roll of persuasion.
16 total.
I understand that it's important for a lot of things. but I can't say.
Phone, I'm not prying, and I would never ask you about your personal business if it wasn't relevant to what's happening here. But, and I'm gonna cast uh, a spell, and I'm gonna say, I need you to tell me who the father of your child is.
All right, so I got the two women who are eavesdropping on you guys. I got to see if they see this. So one of them is going to like shriek as she sees you like start to weave magic. What is your spell save DC?
It's 14, and it's wisdom.
Damn, I rolled a 19 for her last time, and then I just rolled a 16 for her. So as you cast suggestion on her, Karina, the owner of Sachez, like shrieks and she just yells out, "You can't do that!" And Phon kind of like shakes her head, almost like coming out of like a drowsy little moment, and she'll like look to you and I won't share his name even under compulsion. And I understand that you would do terrible things to protect me and my child, but I will not risk what is important to me either. You should go before we have to call the guards.
Jinx will like jump up and kind of do like the pat his like coin purse, and he's like ready to get the hell out of there. He knows he just kind of effed up. You have to understand, it's for your own protection. We're just trying to help you. I'm sorry. And I'll pull out some coins, and I'm gonna offer it to her.
What coins are you pulling out?
Well, I'm gonna have my hand just closed. You won't see what I have in my hand. But I was gonna give her 10 gold coins if she'll take them.
I rolled an 18. I think she's going to reach out, and as she says out loud, you should donate them to St. Gustav's. She's already got the coins in her hand. She's like moving them into like a little pocket in her dress. Um, the well-being of the city is more important than any of us.
Plenty of coin finds its way. This is one of those rare opportunities where you get to help someone, some help a couple someone's. Just think about it as a good deed, cutting out all the bureaucracy of it.
Let me get an insight from both of you.
That's a 4?
Take yours over a
11.
10 there, Jinx.
Yeah, 11, 11.
Gotcha. I'll say that's enough for you to recognize that the way she's acting, you have a solid reason to say, um, uh, I feel like without giving you like the information, it's probably a holy man. And you just heard about two who came to check in on the fire. You've got one that you know she spends her time with regularly.
Oh shit, we got a scandal, son. All right, well, if we can put that together, I think there's enough subtlety that we don't want to like embarrass her in front of her people or anything. And I think Jinx is definitely ready to get out there because he knows he shouldn't have been casting magic on people.
Oh yeah, in the right setting, that's like pretty on point to effectively assaulting somebody. Like stealing their willpower is pretty much high crime.
You got anything else for him, Malchin?
Yeah, no, not after this.
Our apologies, ladies. Appreciate the subtleties. And we'll just get out of there.
Gotcha. So we're nearing a pretty solid end time, but do you guys have any thoughts? Do you? I don't necessarily think next week is an ideal thing to go. Um, it just depends what you guys think you're gonna do next week. Do you want to go to St. Gustav's? Do you want to look into Temple of the Watcher?
Yeah.
So oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say next week I won't be able to make it because it's my
Oh,
work
oh,
week.
that's one of the things I was thinking. Like, can we do Saturday next week?
Yeah, no, I'm sadly busy that Saturday. So
All right, cool. So we can potentially do two-person with the Justins, and do Jinx and Dalton. Otherwise, we can potentially just back up in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, see what Justin says, Tavros, or Dalton, and then we can kind of go from there. If we skip a week, we can just kind of figure it all out together. If we still play next week, we can go to the temple and kind of like keep taking down that arc, unless Justin wants to do something different.
All right, cool. Sounds good. We'll kind of leave it there with you guys kind of like pointed towards those two temples, St. Gustav's and the Watcher of the Skies.
Yeah, and then if you talk to Justin during the week or whatever, and then just let me know, and we can kind of play it by ear.
Alrighty then. Thank you very much, adventurers, for tuning in today to this adventure in Ptolus City by the Spire. I have been your DM, Marathustra. It is always a pleasure to have you visit us with the Dice Never Lie Gaming Network. We have been Twin Star Marauders today, while Jinx and Malchin have investigated the happenings inside of the city. Next week we may be on break as Chris Malchin will be working a pretty busy weekend. We will have to see what everything includes, whether the Justins are available to pick up the quest and continue on, if we do something else entirely outside of Ptolus, or perhaps play around with something else. We'll kind of leave that up to the moment to see what happens. Maybe I'll actually be doing something inside of like Call of Cthulhu. But we will see how next week, the start of April, pans out there. We are planning on introducing a new homebrew world later in the month of April, hoping to see how things go there. But otherwise, we are continuing on with this Ptolus campaign, and will at very least be picking up with it on 4/9, April 9th, coming up in 2 weeks here. So thank you very much, as always, for tuning in. Please don't hesitate to like, subscribe, and comment. Have any questions for us here at Dice Never Lie? It has been my pleasure to be your dungeon master, and as always, it is my pleasure to serve those who come to adventure. And I'd like to thank you all, no matter why you are here, for being here. Thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be your dungeon